Welcome to Business Over Beer, where entrepreneurs, small business owners, and people passionate about what they do bring us their stories and their favorite beer. Hosted by Ben Surratt, Jonathan Kaler, and Jason Knope, it's time to get down to business and drink some beer.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the second biggest podcast in the Pacific Northwest. Yes, we are still on the heels of those pesky Sasquatch hunters. I tell you, I'm getting sick of them. But I know for a fact, this episode right now, ladies and gentlemen, this will bring us to the apex. We will pass the Sasquatch Hunters. 2021 will be the year. I am Ben Surratt, your co-host of the Business Over Beer podcast. Alongside me, across from me, live.
We're live tonight. You believe that?
Is the man of the hour. The terror of power. Some people call him the space cowboy. Some people refer to him as Touchdown Jesus. Some people call him the Beast of Bray Lane. Ooh. But we know him as Spartacus. Mr. Jonathan Kaler, happy Friday, live.
Happy Friday, Ben. I am so happy to be here. We are out in the world, socially distanced, of course, very safe.
Like legit socially.
Yeah.
This is like for real. Look at this.
You know, we've got the couple over here, which is a little close, and we know how much you like Kyle, so that's okay too. You guys have a little rapport going on there, but that's okay. Not that there's anything wrong with that. And speaking of there not being anything wrong, we have with us, of course, as always, the gift that keeps on giving. He is the gangsta of Hazeldale. Are you all down with the KNOPP?
Yeah, you know me.
Jason Knope, welcome to Business Over Beer, my friend. How you feeling tonight?
I'm feeling pretty good, Beast. I'm happy to be over on the east side.
Yeah, the Beast of Bray Lane. Where the hell is Bray Lane, do you think?
I don't know, but I thought I smelled a beast, and it wasn't the Milwaukee's Beast.
No,
So,
it certainly wasn't.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to be here. This is fantastic. We got some really cool guests tonight here at Life Force Chiropractic on the east side, 164th. Cody, Tiffany, Kyle, how are you guys tonight?
Doing well. Doing really, really well.
Yeah, excited to be here and be on with you guys tonight.
Yeah, welcome to Business Over Beer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we always like to start with your business. So as Knope mentioned, we're here live in Life Force Chiropractic, in your practice, in your building. Can one of you maybe just give us the 50,000-foot view of Life Force Chiropractic and kind of what you guys are into?
Well, we start with 1,800 square feet.
Uh-oh, she came to play, Ben. Uh-oh.
No, so we're a family practice. We're in the east side, so we're right in front of Big Al's, and we see all ages of all disorders and dysfunction, as well as all well children, families, and elderly. That's who we are. We use an instrument, and it's pretty gentle.
And so you mentioned that you're a family practice. So what is the family relation between the three of you?
Yeah, great question. So Dr. Tiffany and I are engaged, and then Dr. Kyle and I are brothers.
And so our listeners might recall you guys were on the Business Over Beer the Business Over Beer podcast. You guys were alumni of our happy hour specials. Yeah. And you were engaged. That was about a year ago. So you're still engaged.
Yes. Yes, we finally picked a date. We're shooting for June 26th.
Excellent. All
Yes.
right. There we go. I'm poking the bear. I'm starting early, Ben.
Before 2029 or?
Yeah. 2021.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, we're so happy to be here. Thank you guys for letting us come in here and invade your space. This is the Business Over Beer podcast. This is the beer portion of the program. We ask all of our guests to bring a beer to share I am hoping that one of you doctors are smart enough to have remembered to bring a beer to share. Have you?
Absolutely.
Oh, thank goodness. Thank goodness. Tell us about the beer you brought.
Yes. So what I brought for you guys was the Deschutes Fresh Squeezed IPA.
Deschutes.
Yes. And so the story behind this one is I'm from Wisconsin, and it was actually knowing that I wanted to be out on the west side, in the West Coast area. My grandpa and I, while I was in chiropractic school, took a road trip. I think it came out to like 6,000 miles, and we stopped in Bend, and then I had this beer, and I was like, whoa, okay. Like, I was just starting to get into IPAs, and man, I just remember this one just kind of knocking me off, and I was like, man, this is super good. Like, and then I led down the trail, and it's always been one of those I go back to.
Awesome. Well, let's crack it open and see what we think.
We kept our corks at home.
And your walls appreciate that.
All right, Prost.
Prost. That's good every time, man. Every time.
Yep.
That's a good welcome to the Northwest beer, isn't it?
Oh,
Yeah, it's nice
for
and
sure. Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't really get much more Northwest than that. I mean, it's
That is-
so earthy. It's so piney. I mean, it's like licking a pine tree. But it does, right? I mean, it's the bitterness is almost so abrasive. Like it just like tenses up your whole palate.
In there.
When was the last time you licked a pine tree, Kaler? I'm just curious.
Thursday,
Okay.
a week ago, Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, then you have good experience, huh?
yeah. I would never give an analogy that I couldn't back up. You know that.
That is true.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I love my first introduction to West Coast beer was also Deschutes, but it was a Mere Pond.
Another classic.
Yeah, another classic. But when this came out, oh man, that summer was. I don't remember much of that summer.
They tell you it was a great summer.
It was a great summer. Woo. So how long have you three been in business together?
3 years coming up here pretty quickly here in 2021. It'd be year number 3.
Wow. So as you know, I'm in business with my wife, you know, and with these two guys across from me here. And one of the hardest things to do is to balance your mission as a business plus what your ambition is as an individual, as a human being, and still balance what the other people in your business, what their needs are too. How does that work? How do you make that work? Because obviously when you come in here, everybody's happy. I don't remember ever a time coming in when Tiffany isn't smiling and Cody's in the back doing something. I don't know what you're doing. And you're just, and Kyle's just
smiling.
and Kyle's smiling at me talking about Bitcoin.
Got to find the next best thing.
How do you guys make it work?
Honestly, sometimes it doesn't, right? Sometimes it doesn't. And that's the reality of it when it comes to relationships, if it's business, family, whatever. Sometimes it just doesn't, but what makes it work in the end is communication. You know, taking the time, and sometimes it's putting yourself aside and making sure you listen or you hear, you get to understand the human being across from you and where they're coming from. Because the reality is, you guys working together, us working together, all of us are trying to accomplish the same thing at the end of the day. And selfishness really doesn't allow that to happen, you know? So communication, number one. And I mean, when it comes down to it, we're all individual people. And to your point a little bit earlier you mentioned we're all cut from a little different fabric, you know, and our communication styles are a little different. So sometimes it takes a little bit longer for some of us to kind of get on that same page and communicate that way. But patience and communication, honestly. When push comes to shove, if you have that. You make it work.
I was going to say, I mean, you guys can't afford, I mean, literally, but, you know, emotionally, you can't afford to, Cody, you can't afford to feel like you're in the middle, the torn between your future wife and your brother. You can't afford to feel like the third wheel, I guess, you know what I'm saying? And you can't afford to feel like the Yoko. So, like, the fact that you make it work and what you just said, it's kudos to you, and just keep up that work, because it shows every time I come in here.
Definitely appreciate that, Ben. Definitely appreciate it. And I mean, we do have a saying, kind of, you wipe the world off your shoes at the door, you know? And that's when you come in and you see all smiles and everybody's happy, you know? Everybody has things going on, and we're no different than that. But nobody else, when they come through here, they're here for hope, health, and healing. And that's the end of the story. That's where the period's put on the sentence, and that's what we make happen.
I love that. That should be like a shirt.
It is. Don't worry. Don't worry, it is.
We haven't put the slogan on one yet.
That's copyrighted. Anybody listening, stay away, okay? That's mine.
So one of the things that I wanted to ask was, when I think about chiropractors, the idea of healing, being healers, healing from within, and overall like health and wellness doesn't really come to mind. That's not the picture that I get when I think of chiropractors. So I'm kind of curious, kind of where does that come from? Where does this healing from within, and the body healing itself, and and your overall mission, which is very clear, A, where does that kind of originate? Where does that come from? And B, is that unique to your practice, or is that pretty similar to what you see in your peers and other chiropractors?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so actually it comes down to like how chiropractic actually began. It actually began with a guy getting injured, losing his hearing. And then there was a doctor at the time who was examining his spine, saw a misalignment, performed that first chiropractic adjustment, and his hearing was restored. So chiropractic began as something that was neurologically based, looking at the function of the body and restoring it. And then over the time, it got watered down to more of the back pain, neck pain, headaches that a lot of people think of, the crunching, twisting, popping kind of thing. So when you look back at chiropractic in the early days, it all began as really, let's improve the body's function and just allow that innate inborn intelligence to run its course and allow people to live better lives.
Sure.
And then as far as our practice and like our mission with helping people do that, it's unique in the profession, but there's definitely other offices out there in the country that do something very similar to what we do.
That's very cool. Tiffany, you mentioned when we asked you about kind of competitive advantage, the first thing you talked about was mission.
Yeah.
And so for you, I know this must be something that's really important to you. And when I talked about mission, I even said the word, and your face just blew up with a huge smile. So where does that come from for you, and kind of how does your relationship with these two guys sort of obviously there's something innate within you, plus then your relationship with these guys and how you came about knowing them and then starting a business together, what is it? What does that mean to you, and how did you kind of come into that?
Yeah, so I think that's something that makes our business different. Just like if you compare any business, the three things that people look for on the market is the mission. Who are you? What are you doing? Why did you do it? So the second piece of that is the story. And the story comes behind knowing somebody, right, that went, seen, heard, or they can relate to your story to want to check it out. And the third and the final is price. Because if the first two are important, then the price really doesn't matter too much. So actually for me, it was a personal story. I fainted about 5 times a day as a teenager.
What?
And it was,
Really?
yeah. So my 2 front teeth are fake. Face planted marble. Yeah. Yeah. And I had the EKG on me at the time, and it was organs are fine. Heart is fine. Blood vessels are fine. Your pancreas is fine. And so it was a series of a lot of neurologists, 2 cardiologists, and a lot of primary care physicians. And I didn't get any answers, to be honest, you guys. I didn't. They were like, you'll grow out of it. And my mom's chiropractor was an old school doc, and he said, why didn't you come to me? And we were like, well, doc, we love you, but like, you're for back pain. Like, what do you mean? And we have those charts all over our office that have the organs on them, and his lit up. and he pushed the button right by the top bone of the neck. And he said, because vasovagal syncope, which is my diagnosis, means your vagus nerve isn't opening and closing your smooth muscle, and therefore your blood isn't being delivered to the other parts of your body, and you're going cold turkey. Just let me try. And we did.
Wow. That's incredible. And so then you meet these guys. We talked a little bit about your story with your mom when you were young. Kyle, why don't you remind everybody about your mom's diagnosis and how that sort of changed the whole health journey for your whole family?
Yeah, when I was about 8 years old, we were honestly just a very unhealthy family. We weren't doing the things we needed to do. I was a very heavy child. Fast food 3 to 4 times a week, and we got hit with a curveball, right? Our mom was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and at the end of the day, for those of you that don't know what that is, it's an autoimmune disease, attacks your brain and spinal cord, and over time, her personal prognosis was 10 years, and she was in a wheelchair.
Oh, wow.
You know? And my mom is a relatively rough around the edges person, right? And she's not a hypocrite in it, you know? Her solution for me, right? She was like, you can go ahead and watch your cartoons, you're overweight, but we're going to have you on the commercials run our stairs or run the driveway, right? Like, your health is no joke. She wasn't a hypocrite about it. She took full responsibility for where she was and what got her to her MS. And then we went organic, we went chiropractic, we went herbs, and we went holistically full-blown on the healthcare thing. And it's been 25 years right now, and if she walked in here, none of you guys would have any clue she has MS. She's not in a wheelchair. 2 years ago, we hiked Smith Rock and Bend with her. You know, anybody that's done that, coming from the Northwest, you know that's not easy. And so at the end of the day, God doesn't make garbage, right? Your body's made to heal, right? Your body's made to do what it's made to do. And life's rough for all of us, right? And sometimes that's physical, sometimes that's emotional, sometimes that's toxic, right? We don't maybe eat the things we need to eat. But at the end of the day, when we put the right things in, the body does what the body needs to do. And that's what really brought me personally, and I know it had to touch on Cody too, into this holistic healthcare model that chiropractic is.
And so was it always chiropractic for you, or did you know you wanted to be in medicine and maybe you were going to be an osteopath or some sort of other type of medicine, or was it always like, I'm laser focused on chiropractic, this is what I want?
Yeah, with that, it really wasn't laser focused on chiropractic specifically, but a lot of times they say you don't choose chiropractic chooses you, you know, and I knew I liked biology. You know, I actually went to a school in Wisconsin that's pretty known for their business. I knew that I liked the business aspect of things. And when I sat down with my advisor and they kind of gave me this opportunity, they said, okay, this chiropractic school has this that correlates with the credits from here. Is this something you'd be interested in? And I started looking into chiropractic, and like Dr. Cody had talked about, really where chiropractic came from and really the power that made the body heals the body. At the end of the day, your health is a puzzle, and if you're putting the right pieces in, like our mom does and has continued to do, you get the picture you're looking for. You know, you get something you like, and that's really chiropractic more chose me than I was laser focused on it.
Got it.
Why is Palmer's where you went,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, almost every chiropractor I know is Palmer. Why Palmer? Why is that so popular in chiropractic practice?
Yeah, I mean, it's where it all began. They actually have a sign in Davenport, Iowa there where the very first chiropractic adjustment was performed.
Oh, jeez.
And that was by Dr. D.D. Palmer. And then his son, B.J. Palmer, pretty much took chiropractic and traveled the entire world and made it to what it is today.
If you're ever in the Quad Cities, you have to tour the Palmer Mansion. B.J. Palmer traveled the world and brought back the most eclectic things. It was quite interesting. So we went there to hear the story about where the passion came from, and we got to live it. He had glasses of spines and scoliosis patterns like in the hallways that we walked past daily. So you really felt it there. It wasn't just a story.
Wow.
It's crazy.
I don't find myself in Iowa much. but next time I'm there.
You can go on a cornfield tour, you know?
I don't know how I missed it. I was there 3 times last year.
What movie?
Yeah.
Were you referencing the movie? I think you're referencing.
Yes, I was.
Knope came to play tonight too. Look at that. He's quoting movies
Field
now.
of Dreams.
No. Planes, Trains,
It was in Iowa, but it was.
was.
Oh yes, I was there 4 times last year.
What is it?
Something about Mary.
Oh, jeez.
Who goes to Columbia 4 times in 1 year? See that?
I figured one of you guys would get it.
I thought Ben would have it. You make me sad.
I've seen it, but I'm not. But I'm just like, they had Brett Favre in it, and it was a bad time. when that SOB showed up at the end of that movie, I'm like, you gotta be kidding me! I'm out of here. We'll get to that later.
Yeah, go Pack, go.
That's a different podcast.
Yeah, we've got some tension in the room between the Bears fans and the Packers fans.
There's no contest. Why?
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
Truth hurts, right?
It's terrible.
But it still creates tension, which is good.
Quincy, he gives you guys shit all
Oh,
the
yeah,
time.
guys.
It's hilarious.
Quincy and I talk mad sauce back and forth every single time he's in here. If I don't get to razz Quincy, my day's not as good as it could have been. You know?
Well, let's talk children then, because that's one of the things that made me a believer. Not that I wasn't a believer before, but I tell this story all the time about you and about what Life Force did for my daughter. She was diagnosed when she was in kindergarten as ADD, ADHD. And the doctors want to put her on medication, Adderall, and it's only 5 milligrams. It's fine. It's not even anything. As a parent, it's like, I don't feel good about this. I don't feel good about giving my kindergartner Adderall at that age to fix something that I believe can be fixed somewhere else. And here's the BNI thing again. Angie, my lovely wife Angela, was in the BNI with Cody, and we brought Bernie here. You guys did the diagnostics, the spinal thing, and I have to tell you, it wasn't immediate, but by the time she was in 3rd grade, she was off the medication completely. And we did some stuff for sure. There's some stuff that we did as parents, but you can't tell me that what you guys did didn't affect that at all. And not a lot of people realize that children can be fixed early on.
Yeah.
Early on. So talk about that a little bit with children and maybe some of the misconceptions that people have.
I think parents always get scared when they think of a chiropractor for their kiddos. They're like, you crunch bones, and I have a child that's very fragile and frail. So it depends on the age. I mean, it's as gentle as checking the ripeness of an avocado to doing an adjustment that's only 8 pounds of pressure. And for us, it looks like a miniature pogo stick that their Barbie doll or their doll would use. So usually it starts with a stuffed animal getting adjusted and them seeing it, and then they feel it in their hand, and then they're ready for it. But kids can largely benefit from chiropractic care because that's the highest that their body will ever heal and adapt. We all know when we, climbed into trees and fell out of them, in 2 days we were fine. We didn't think about it. Now, as an adult, if we do that, we're like, I'm gonna be down for the next week. So for kids, they heal a lot quicker. And chiropractic care just makes sure that their spine is in alignment so their muscles and their brain activity can continue to develop because they grow so rapidly that if that's not on par, then there's delays. And those delays are usually in motor skills or muscle movements.
Talk about the ADD though and ADHD. How is that all part of it when it comes to chiropractic?
So when it comes down to like any specific system within chiropractic, and Dr. Cody hit on it really well earlier, neurological, right? When it comes down to it, your brain literally controls every function in your body. You don't get to choose for it not to. It does. That's the way it works. And if something's misaligned in the communication or through the wiring that nervous system communicates through, things aren't going to fire right. And if things aren't firing right, in Bernie's case, maybe we're not concentrating the way we should, or maybe we can't focus the way we should. When Bernie lays on the table, she doesn't get an ADHD adjustment, though, right? When Bernie lays on the table, she gets an adjustment to restore the function of her body, right? To help take the pressure off of the nervous system and allow it to work the way it's supposed to. And that's why we see the stuff that we see here. You know, we have a lady that hadn't been able to finish a crochet pattern, right? Because she had numbness and tingling in her hands. We weren't like, you know what, I got a crochet adjustment for you. You know, let me hook you up. You know, it was 100%, you know what? Your body's not working the way it's supposed to. What can we do on our end to help facilitate that, to allow it to do what it needs to do? And like you said, Ben, you and Angie did a lot too, right? And we talked about it a little bit earlier. Health is a puzzle. What pieces are you putting in that puzzle to get the picture you want to see? Because at the end of the day, your health is your responsibility, and you're a parent, right? So as a parent, your kid's health is your responsibility. So when that all boils down to it, what are you teaching your child as far as habits, thought processes, and patterns? And then what can we do when you walk through our doors to help those further benefit that child? That's really what it boils down to. It's not an ADHD specific thing necessarily. It's, Bernie, you know what? Your body wasn't working the way it's supposed to. Let us help you with that. You know, and that's what we're really, really good at. Because, I mean, if you think about the birth process, if I had a baby and I went to hand it to any one of you, what would you do? You'd protect its head and neck, right? None of us are delivered by a stork in a towel. Like, that's, as much as Disney wants us to believe that's what happens, I know, mind-blowing, that's not the way it is. But the reality is it only takes 5 pounds of pressure to create a whiplash injury in that child's neck. And guess what? Little Timmy doesn't get to look at you and say, hey, Mom, hey, Dad, my neck hurts. No, little Timmy gets to scream and cry and have a horrible 6 months of colic, right, or constipation or whatever that might be for little Timmy. And he grows out of it. And what growing out of it means is he adapts to it, doesn't necessarily get over it, but his body adapts to it and learns how to deal with it. And you know what? Our body gets to a point, and for a lot of people, it's 23 to 33 where their body stops adapting like it used to, right? We hit a threshold, and finally we start getting those straws that break the camel's back, you know, and you do something, and you're like, man, 5 years ago I did that, I had no problem. What's the difference? Well, you now have 25, 30 years worth of really intelligent decisions piled on your body, right? And those might be different for everybody. For me, you know, four-wheeler riding, jumping off of things I probably shouldn't jumped off of. You know, growing up out in the country, we did some really intuitive things that were very, very interesting. But
I was going to say, I'm almost 45 years old, and I don't have 30 years of good decisions piled up in me. No. I got maybe 3 or 4 years of good decisions, and then the rest is a little suspect.
So you're looking for the Aaron Rodgers adjustment tonight, aren't you?
Okay, you got to bring up that.
I would not mind an Aaron Rodgers adjustment. So did I hear you correctly? Like even that young, at infant and toddler age, you guys see patients that young?
yeah, hours old, you know. And like Dr. Tiffany said, it's checking the ripeness of an avocado. It's not a lot of pressure, you know. You put a little pressure where it needs to be put. Right place, right time is where you're supposed to give that adjustment, and that's what we do. A little bit of pressure, and that bone goes home, goes where it belongs. And at the end of the day, setting that foundation from day one, that child's life and quality of life, maybe they won't notice it for the first 25 years, but you know, they start hitting 50, 55, 60, 75, 80. If you think of an 80-year-old, what's the quality of life of that individual that instantly comes to your mind? It's not great, you know, it's not great. They're a fraction of maybe what they once were a human being, and we never know the impact that we're making, not just within chiropractic, but within any decision we make. And for that individual and what we do here, we know chiropractically, if we get our hands on that child and we're able to improve their function from day one, guess what? They get to take that through the rest of their life. That's something that foundation is set, and they get to move forward from there. They don't have to, I mean, the birth process, right? Let's say somebody was pulled out, right? Maybe they weren't coming out as easily as we'd maybe like to see, right? Maybe it wasn't the ideal birth. And maybe there was 50 pounds of pressure on that child's neck. And now they didn't see a chiropractor until they were 35 and they have a reverse curve and they have arthritis in their neck. Guess what? Now we're not playing with perfect structure anymore. We're trying to play catch up 35 years later. We're trying to be a hare in a race that's been ran by a tortoise slow and steady for the first 35 years of their life. And that's not the easiest game to play sometimes.
So what should parents be on the lookout for? I mean, obviously, we're all parents here on the business over beer side. The doctors aren't parents, so that's why they like all these kids. But
That's where all this experience came from.
yeah, I don't know. But like, so as a parent, I mean, we're going to the doctor early in life, weekly, monthly, bi-monthly, quite a bit over the first 2 years of those kids' lives. Never once was it brought up chiropractic. Yeah. Is it a total misconception that, hey, there's something more that could be done? Not that there's anything wrong per se, but there's something more that could be done. Are we just so numb to it as parents that, hey, this is just the way it's supposed to be? So, hey, what are some of those signs that a parent should be looking out for to say, well, maybe I want to go get a consultation and see if there's something there? And what's your relationship with the pediatricians as far as trying to get referrals and saying, hey, you need to be looking out for this too. Help us help your patients. What does all of that look like?
With pediatricians, it's hard. We love working with them, but there's a big misconception between the medical side and the chiropractic side. But it's not only chiropractic, it's any holistic realm because it just looks at things in a different paradigm and shift. So we're always open. It's usually our parents that help us bridge the gap to the pediatricians. So as parents, when you look at your infant, if mom notices if she's breastfeeding and baby will feed on the one side, but the baby's very cranky on the other side, it's because baby doesn't want to turn their neck. The other thing is I always tell my moms, look at the forehead, nose, chin, and chest bone. If they're not in a straight alignment, baby's usually tilting the ear to one shoulder, which means that we're pulling on those neck muscles as well. Now baby usually is a little bit more fussy, especially when they're laying by themselves in bed. So that's where we start to see colic. Well, if the neck alignment is out, it's that vagus nerve that I was talking about. So opening and closing the smooth muscles, now that largely affects digestion. So now baby can't process the bottle if they're on formula to break down the proteins, or vice versa. They can't do it to break down the breast milk. So for infants, it's a lot about the neck movement and digestion. For kiddos, it's making sure your kiddos are on the milestones. And as parents, you guys could probably all attest, you see the other kids in the classroom, at least until this time period, right? And you're like, my kid's not quite jumping like the other kids. Or my kiddo's not quite sitting, or they're not quite standing. So muscle movements are honestly the earliest signs that there's a neurological problem within the body. And chiropractic care will put the bone back in place so that their neurology is now open instead of a kinked water hose. So again, for them, it's concentration, it's digestion, and it's the way they can sleep. If they're having nightmares or, bedwetting or constipation, or they're in the classroom and the teacher's like, hey, your child is not sitting still or they're not cooperating, anger is another big one. Because imagine me clicking a pen right now over and over again. You guys would all be like, stop that. That's kind of what the internal workings of their body's doing, and they just don't know it to escape it. So it's motor movements, watching their muscles and their development process that way. And then the other thing would be frequent sickness. If the kiddos frequently need to go in for an antibiotic, it usually means the body is not healing quite right.
Well, Ben, I don't know about my vagus nerve, but I know about your vagus nerve, and it also makes you pass out. But that's a story for a different day. I had to make a Vegas joke.
I was excited to hear that we could help cure Canope's bedwetting problem.
Absolutely.
I'll get in here one of these days. I'm looking for the honey badger treatment for my little one. That's what I'm looking for.
Well, we are just, scratching the surface here, obviously. You guys and your mission is just so, it's so uplifting to hear you guys talk about why you're in business. So I can't wait to get further into that and learn more about kind of where you're going. But before we do that, Ben, you look thirsty, bro.
I am thirsty.
I knew it.
Join us next week for part 2 of this episode. You can be sure we'll be talking more business and drinking more beer. Business Over Beer reminds you to always drink responsibly. Our theme song is Idiocracy by Christian Leo. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Business Over Beer, a TH3 Entertainment production.